They say buildings are meant to last a lifetime, but what happens when greed, shortcuts, and sheer negligence turn them into death traps? You are gonna see 5 of the worst construction disasters ever recorded. Cases where cracks were ignored, warnings were dismissed, and entire structures crumbled with devastating consequences. Number 5. The Teton Dam disaster, 1976. A dam is meant to hold back the force of nature. But what happens when that force proves stronger than human engineering? In the early 1970s, the US Bureau of Reclamation built the Teton Dam in Idaho, a massive earthen dam designed to prevent floods, generate power, and provide irrigation. It cost over $100 million to construct, but just a year after completion, disaster struck. It started with a small leak. A trickle of muddy water seeped through the dam's surface, an ominous sign of something much worse. As workers rushed to plug it, the leak grew. And then, in a terrifying instant, the entire dam gave way. A roaring 300 billion gallon flood, stronger than Niagara Falls, obliterated entire towns in minutes. Sugar City and Rexburg were wiped off the map. 11 people lost their lives, 16,000 animals drowned, and damages soared to $2 billion, twice the dam's construction cost. Engineers ignored geological warnings. The dam was built on unstable ground, riddled with fissures and caves. Worse, it was made of loess soil, which isn't even waterproof. A disaster was inevitable. The US government was forced to compensate victims, paying out $300 million. But that money couldn't undo the devastation. And as horrifying as this was, the next disaster on our list claimed even more lives. Number 4. The Hyatt Regency Walkway Collapse, 1981. A beautiful hotel atrium, a crowd of 1,000 guests, and a fatal engineering mistake that turned a night of celebration into America's deadliest structural failure. The Hyatt Regency Hotel in Kansas City was a stunning architectural feat, boasting elevated walkways suspended from the ceiling by steel rods. The problem? A single design change made those rods carry twice the intended weight. No one double-checked the modification. No one saw the disaster coming. On July 17th, 1981, during a lively tea dance, guests gathered in the atrium. 40 people stood on the second-floor walkway, 20 more on the fourth. The structure was overloaded, but no one realized, until 7:05 p.m. A sickening snap, a thunderous crash. The walkways collapsed like dominoes, raining down onto the crowded floor below. 114 people were crushed to death. 216 more were injured. Survivors described the horror: twisted metal, shattered glass, the screams of the trapped. Jack D. Gillum, the lead engineer, lost his license, taking full responsibility. The tragedy forced a massive overhaul in engineering regulations. Number 3. The Seongsu Bridge Collapse, 1994. Imagine driving to work, sipping your coffee, when suddenly, the road beneath you disappears. That's what happened on October 21st, 1994, in Seoul, South Korea. The Seongsu Bridge was a vital link over the Han River, packed with rush-hour commuters, when, without warning, a 48-meter section of the bridge snapped like a twig. A bus, cars, and dozens of people plummeted into the water below. 32 people died. 17 were seriously injured. And the terrifying part? The warning signs were there all along. Just hours before the collapse, reports surfaced about visible cracks in the structure. But instead of shutting down the bridge, officials did nothing. When the investigation began, the truth was damning. Substandard materials, lack of maintenance, and negligence had sealed its fate. The disaster was a wake-up call. South Korea overhauled its infrastructure regulations, implementing stricter safety measures and frequent inspections. But history has a cruel way of repeating itself. Number 2. The Sampung Department Store Collapse, 1995. A luxury shopping mall. 40,000 daily visitors. A structural disaster waiting to happen. In the heart of Seoul, South Korea, the Sampoong department store was a thriving hub of commerce. But behind its glittering storefronts was a horrifying secret. It was never meant to exist in the first place. Originally designed as an apartment complex, the building's plans were recklessly altered by Chairman Lee Jun to include an extra floor and massive escalators, both of which required removing vital support columns. When the original construction company refused to make these unsafe modifications, Lee Jun fired them and hired his own workers, forcing the project through. By 1995, cracks started appearing, especially on the top floor. Employees raised concerns, but Lee Jun dismissed them. Then, on June 29, 1995, the cracks widened. The building was on the verge of collapse. That afternoon, Lee Jun himself fled the premises, but didn't evacuate shoppers. At 5:52 p.m., a loud cracking sound echoed through the mall. People turned, confused, and then the roof caved in. The entire building collapsed floor by floor, trapping 1,500 people under thousands of tons of rubble. 502 lost their lives, making it South Korea's deadliest peacetime disaster. Investigators uncovered widespread corruption and bribery. City officials had accepted bribes to overlook violations. Lee Jun and his son were sentenced to prison, but no amount of jail time could undo the devastation. Number 1. The Rana Plaza Disaster, 2013. A massive 8-story factory. Thousands of workers forced to enter despite visible cracks in the walls. What happened next was one of the deadliest industrial disasters in history. The Rana Plaza in Bangladesh wasn't meant to house factories. It was designed for small businesses and shops. But its owner, Sohail Rana, illegally added 4 extra floors without permits or proper structural support. The result? A ticking time bomb. On April 23, 2013, deep cracks were spotted in the building's walls. Workers panicked. But with production deadlines looming, factory owners ignored the warnings and ordered everyone to return to work the next day. At 8:57 a.m. on April 24th, the unthinkable happened. The entire building collapsed in mere seconds. A horrifying pancake collapse, burying thousands beneath concrete and steel. The death toll? 1,134 people lost their lives. More than 2,500 were injured. It remains one of the worst workplace disasters ever recorded. The tragedy exposed the dark reality of fast fashion. Garment workers forced into dangerous conditions just to meet global demand. The disaster sparked global outrage, forcing brands to rethink workplace safety and pushing Bangladesh to reform building regulations. These disasters weren't just about crumbling concrete and steel. They were about ignored warnings, unchecked greed, and human lives lost. What's truly haunting is that, in each case, someone knew something was wrong. Someone could have prevented it. But shortcuts, corruption, and negligence turned these buildings into death traps. That's all from my side. If you like this video, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.